Meeting will take place on Monday next week with a view to firming up dates for resumption of face-to-face learning. Meanwhile, the Education Response Committee has until Saturday to submit the proposals on the back-to-school formula ahead of the Monday's meeting, as KTN's Shadrach Mitty now reports.
When schools closed in mid-March due to COVID-19, the government never expected the closures to last this long. In its last communication, the government had said January 2021 for reopening of schools. But schools are likely to reopen sooner than previously thought. The government has already rolled out a 1.9 billion shilling desk procurement program for schools in a move seen as the biggest step towards reopening. And in yet another indication of a possible resumption of face-to-face learning, the Principal Secretary for Basic Education, Dr. Belio Kipsang, has published new rules to guide preparations towards reopening. In addition, the National Education Response Committee has until Saturday to submit its recommendation on reopening of schools ahead of Monday's National Education Stakeholder meeting for adoption. In the guidelines, head teachers and school managers are required to create physical distance between learners and place desks or working tables at least 1 meter apart. However, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha acknowledges the difficulty in implementing social distancing protocols in schools.
So if you have a cubicle with 8 children and it can only take 2, you want me to say that come this time we shall have built 4 times? You must be crazy in your head.
To minimize the danger of physical contact, school fields shall be appropriately marked to ensure learners play different games that avoid touching or holding. Assemblies and inter-school games and competitions, including drama, music and other sports, will be suspended for the time being. For nursery schools, all children will be required to maintain a distance of at least 1 meter within groups of 3 to 4 in the classrooms, with teachers required to ensure adequate spaces between group workstations to allow free movement of the learners and the teachers. But even as stakeholders gear up for the Monday meeting, the 1.9 billion shillings budgeted for the procurement of desks remained the biggest divisive element among stakeholders.
To wink the public that there is close to 2 billion set aside for the provision of or procurement of desks is not what we expect from the ministry, because the desks are already in schools. What is lacking in school are 2 major issues related to COVID protocol, and one of them is the provision of running water, and secondly the provision of space.
Whereas the government has defended the program, many have questioned its objective, raising questions of integrity.
You would expect the ministry not to fall into the trap of previous ministers, where we had about 17 billion allocated for the provision of laptops or tablets, and then finally that project has failed.
Meanwhile, parents must brace for extra financial burden, with CS Magoha indicating that even though the government plans to produce masks for all learners, parents must be ready to meet other financial obligations.
And we have identified a prototype mask which costs only 35 shillings. So for you to buy 2, it will cost 70 shillings, which is the price of a loaf of bread.
Shadrach Mitty, KTN News.
ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi has called on Kenyans to make a wise decision come 2022 on the government they will vote in, saying it should be a government that will